Hello everyone. Welcome to CEC online lecture. Dear learners, I am Dr. Amna. I teach political science at Shama Prasad Mukherjee College for Women. Dear learners, the topic for today is indeed a very important one because when we try to understand the issue of geopolitics, issues of regional and other global approach, India's strategy of look east to act east is indeed very important. This is why our lecture shall focus on look east to act east. In the lecture, we will be having a look at major challenges as well as opportunities for this drastic evolution and great change and leap in the foreign affairs apparatus, namely from look east to act east. Dear learners, this topic is very significant not only for learners of global politics, international relations, but also for learners who want to gain keen insights into the dynamics of changing international political economy. Namely, because the countries that are involved in this India's approach of Act East now are major global players also. Dear learners, as we begin with our learning, let us understand that our foreign affairs apparatus has indeed witnessed a great change. There has been drastic change, and this has been backed by history, supported by sound economics, heritage, cultural ties, amongst others. Now, it was in the era of 1990s when Indian foreign affairs apparatus witnessed a new perspective of look east. Now, we all know that the time period of 1990s is indeed very significant in the foreign affairs perspective also, namely because the Cold War came to an end. There was dissolution of the Soviet Union, and this is important for India because Soviet Union was one of the important partners for India for defense and other initiatives. Now, in this aspect, looking at new realignments in world politics, looking at new contours of global politics, the then Indian Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao presented a strategic push in diplomatic avenues through the Look East policy. Look East policy also signified having a look towards new partners in the form of new partners from South and East Asia, and also broadening the apparatus of global diplomacy for India. When we try to understand the Look East policy, its dimensions are very important, namely defense. We all know that it is always essential to safeguard national interest, and defense is one of the very important avenues of that. When we try to understand Indian perspective within the Asian milieu, it is very important to contain China, and looking at it from that perspective, the Southeast Asian India presents new opportunity for India for its defense diplomatic avenues. And an example here could be India supplying BrahMos missile to Vietnam in order to contain China. Another important dimension of Look East policy is that of security. We all know that how security and trade are very significant to safeguard national interests. And when we look at the Asian perspective, once again this becomes important for India to diversify its security arrangements to contain China and to present a stronghold for itself. So when we hear about new base, say in Singapore, or perhaps new ports in Indonesia, this shows how there has been attempts to work out security apparatus along with new partners. An important perspective in global politics after the end of the Cold War was the rise of globalization. Now, with the rise of globalization, there was free movement of goods and services, and East Asia, Southeast Asia presented new markets for India. So, at a time when a world witnessed integration, interdependence, and new forms of trade, finance, South and Southeast Asia presented new dynamics for India, and within this milieu, look East policy of the country presented a new milieu in order to give a further push to the country's work and other negotiation in the domain of economics, and also presenting a new diversified base for the country to expand itself also. So what we see here is the Look East policy indeed presented new dynamics to India at a time when there was realignment in global politics after the Cold War, at a time when globalization was rising and India could tap on avenues of economic globalization, security perspectives also, through a meticulous balancing and management of its Look East policy. We all know that when we talk about Southeast Asia and India, there are strong civilizational ties, there are cultural bonds, heritages to be celebrated, arts, literature, binding people, communities, and business forums together. Now, in this perspective, as we understand Act East, let me give you a very important insight from the contemporary scenario that at a time when we are talking about leap from Look East to Act East, recently India also witnessed Act Far East. Yes, in this context, what we find here is the recent visit of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji to Russia, where looking at diaspora, looking at common bonds, looking at the need to diversify investment, need to work out new avenues of growth together. India has indeed given a new push, a new direction to its Act East, to that of acting towards Far East also. Dear learners, as we take the deliberations forward, let us begin on the new aspect of Act East policy by first differentiating between Look East and Act East. When we talk about the Look East policy, it was primarily about Asian integration with focus on Southeast Asia. It was about economic integration, and of course there were leaps also when we look at the time framework of 1996, 2002, 2012. There has been indeed leap in terms of India's engagement with ASEAN, from a dialogue partner to that of strategic partnership. Now, within this, one also has to appreciate and factor in the aspect that when we look at EAS, when we look at ARF, these are some very important Asian, so Southeast Asian forums wherein India has registered its due presence and also support for various positive initiatives for a better world. Now, as we understand this changing dynamics of the foreign policy and the larger processes of foreign affairs, dear learners, the Act East policy was witnessed in the diplomatic avenues for India in the year of 2014 when the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji at India ASEAN Summit presented this idea of Act East. We all know that foreign affairs always were tilted during the Cold War time in terms of the capitalist versus communist bloc, and the region of Southeast Asia was somewhere not taken into consideration. Now, India rectifies this lacune by presenting a very important dynamic in perspective of Act East. Now, if we go by policy documents, there are four C's that bind are the guiding light for the Act East policy, namely culture, commerce, connectivity, capacity building, amongst others. Now, using these four C's, India has indeed worked out mechanisms to reach out more to the East Asia, the Southeast Asia, which has indeed proved beneficial for its diplomatic issues also. And further, it has also enabled India to carve out a distinct image for itself as a world leader. Dear learners, when we hear about the term Indo-Pacific, when we hear about the dynamics of Quad, Indo-Pacific, though it was first used by the Japanese Prime Minister, later reused by the United States President, has become important right from conducting joint naval exercises to also signifying a new bloc where Indian stakes are important. Similarly, when we talk about Quad, namely United States, Japan, Australia, and also India, this also signifies an informal strategic alliance wherein the focus is to usher out new realms of development and also focus on Indo-Pacific, and at the same time look at the China factor also. We all know that when we try to understand geopolitics, regional dynamics have to be balanced. So when we look at the leap from look east to act east, or to that matter presently act far east, the dynamics of Indo-Pacific, Quad, or for that matter working out new mechanisms of integration with Russia is indeed beneficial for India, looking at its historical aspects, looking at the dynamics of the South Asian vicinity within which India is situated, and also looking at the changed context of global politics. When we talk about the look east to act east, we have to see that how today Japan and South Korea, they are important pillars of Indian foreign policy apparatus for the Act East policy. Namely, when we look at issues of defense ties, when we look at the need to reform United Nations, when we hear about joint mechanisms to have better technology transfer or to work out new models of globalization, Japan and South Korea indeed have been great friends with India, and these friendly ties have proved to be beneficial for the Act East policy of India. Now, as we understand the opportunities, at the same time, it is essential to also focus on the challenges. Some of the challenges that are there when one is engaging in a particular region or a forum, one has to look at it how, when we look at the Act East policy, issue like trade deficit, issues of containing China, issues of RCEP are important because any bargain that implies loss at the domestic end does not sound sane. Because in national interest, if we go by the realist ideas, it is national interest which is supreme motivator, and the dynamics of power must factor in national interest. So these are some important challenges that one has to look at today at a time when the global world is going through tectonic shifts. World is looking at a new world order. Global governance is facing issues of transparency and trust from China. At this time, there is a need to work out new mechanisms also for supply chains. So, in this regard, how to factor in the trade hub, manufacturing hub, India has to meticulously work out on its look east policy and ensure that its leap towards Act East translates into a sound framework which factors in domestic gains, which increases its domestic strengths, and at the same time ensures that global dynamics are in congruence with the Indian national interest. So, therefore, dear learners, when we understand the historical evolution of foreign affairs apparatus, the transition from look east to act east is indeed a very important aspect. It tells us that how the foreign affairs apparatus has been in tandem to cater to the needs of the time. It tells us that how today, when national interest is multidimensional, at a time when world is facing problems whose threats cut across borders, namely climate change, issues of ecological security, rising technology as currency of power, rise of industry 4.0. In this scenario, it's very essential at the same time to safeguard regional security and factor in national unity and integrity. So, therefore, looking at the geographical location of India from the China perspective, the leap from look east to act east is indeed beneficial for the Indian diplomatic initiatives which factor in advantages for its national interest as well as for its diplomatic affairs. And at the same time, it tells us that how foreign affairs evolve as per the needs of the time. It presents to us insights that how problems of the global world are contested, and these contestations and these contested nature of problems can be better managed by right synchronization with regional partners. So, therefore, dear learners, whenever we understand the look east policy, we have to see that how the world has changed from the Cold War time of 1990s, end of Cold War, end of Soviet Union, to the present time when even globalization is being redebated. Time and again, India has put forward the need for reform in globalization, the idea to place people over profits. In such a scenario, countries like Japan, South Korea have indeed come out to support the Indian vision. So, therefore, dear learners, as we conclude the lecture, the idea of the leap from look east to act east is indeed a great example of evolution of foreign affairs. It presents strategic insights into dimensions of defense, security, trade ties, amongst others, and above all, a vision which factors in right regional alignment in order to contain expansionism and other issues that and other challenges that often come forward with China. This also affirms India's stand, that is for the need for a reform multilateralism, the need for a world order which is based on justice and parity. So therefore, dear learners, as we understand the transition from Look East to Act East, it presents insights that how text and context of foreign affairs have been aptly correlated with due strategic alliance for gains in all realms. Dear learners, thank you very much for being with us for this lecture on Look East to Act East, understanding challenges and opportunities.